In this video, I'm going to explain the top 3 reasons why your fat loss strategy isn't working, and we're going to talk about ways that you can fix it. So my name's Adam Bunnell. I'm an online fat loss professional, and I work with elite men around the world, getting them to elite body compositions using a process of metabolism manipulation called metabolic priming. And we've worked with many, many men around the world using this strategy, and there will be an entire video on metabolic priming on the main page of my YouTube channel. But today, in the purpose of today's video, is to break down step by step my top 3 reasons why you're probably stuck and why your fat loss strategy isn't working, right? So let's get right into today's video. So first, tracking calories and macros correctly, okay? So I see a lot of people in an instance, for instance, not track calories correctly. And if you don't know how to track calories and you don't exactly know what your macros should be, go on my YouTube channel because I made a full video on it. But you need to be understanding how to track macros. That is most important. How to track calories. That is most important. And how many calories, macronutrients that you need to be hitting. So a lot of things that I see on people who maybe are tracking their macros or are tracking their calories is they don't account for little nuances. For instance, sauces, right? Sauces, or maybe a coffee creamer, and those little things that add up during the day's time, or maybe like just a snack here and there that they don't really think too much about. And at the end of the day, you're now over 200, 300, 400 calories, and that's a big reason why you're maybe stuck and you're plateaued. So you got to understand and account for the little nuances, account for the little day-to-day things, account for those little snacks that you eat here and there. And one, that'll help you have an accurate gauge on if you are actually stuck in a fat loss plateau or you're just not tracking correctly, right? So another thing that I see is that people not weighing food correctly. So if you know your calories, you know your macronutrients, and you've been tracking your calories and macronutrients for some time now, but you can't understand where you're stuck, I want you to check exactly what you've been eating and what you've been weighing on the scale, right? So let's take this in a practical example. So like, dry rice, for example, 50 grams of dry rice and 50 grams of cooked rice are completely different volumes, right? So you could be eating, 50 grams of carbs, or you could be eating 300 grams of carbs. And we've had that happen to some guys in our program before, but I catch it early on. And so you need to be understanding that you need to make sure to log your foods in MyFitnessPal or whatever app you use the same way that you are eating it, right? It's very, very important, but it does happen ever so often within our program. We usually catch it pretty quickly, but that's something that does happen. So also, weekend routine is leaving you stuck. Okay. So let's think about this on a weekly perspective, right? So let's say you are at a 2,000 calorie diet and you eat 2,000 calories and you got your macros dialed in because obviously that's most important. And 5 days you eat 2,000 calories, you just nail everything perfectly. And then on the weekend, you're like, hey, I had a good week. You know what? Like, I'm going to enjoy myself this weekend. You go, maybe you have some drinks with some friends. Maybe you go out to eat with the wife, and you don't really plan ahead for this, but you end up eating significantly more over, okay? So let's think about this from a weekly perspective. So if you're allocated 2,000 calories for 7 days, that would be 14,000 calories. So let's say on Saturday and Sunday, you went over 1,500 calories, right? So instead of eating 1,400 calories per week, now you're up at 17,000, right? So it makes a significant difference. So I see a lot of people go to the weekend, say, hey, I had a really good weekend, and they ruin their whole week on those 2 days on the weekend. And I'm not saying you can't do that. Like, you can go out on the weekends and you can have a strategy for that, but you have to understand how to plan ahead for that. And you have to understand still tracking relative macros and calories and leaving some room for little nuances like that. For instance, in our program, we teach our guys is that if you have, let's say, a dinner that night with the wife, make sure to leave X amount of calories, stay protein focused leading up to it, and then enjoy that meal, but have the padding of some calories that are left. And that way we don't go way over, but we've planned ahead. And maybe you go for 100, 200, 300, 500 calories over, but that's not going to make a huge difference at the end of the day, as opposed to eating all day and then going out to eat, eating 2,000, 3,000 calories over, and you just backtrack for the full week, right? So a big thing that I see as well is not your weekend routine isn't planned out right. So next is a big thing. No updates or changes to plan. So if you are somebody who has lost 20, 30, 40 pounds and you've kind of hit a plateau and you haven't changed how much food you're eating, how much cardio you're doing, and there's been no updates to your plan, obviously you're going to be stuck because you need to be updating your actual plan based upon the progress you're making. And that's the exact reason why we have our clients check in every single week, is because we can make micro adjustments to their plan to keep them progressing, right? So not updating your nutrition plan is something that I see very often with people that I come across is, I ask them like, okay, well, what's your calories at? Like 2,000, right? And I was like, well, how long have you been on that? For like 8 months. I'm like, well, why haven't you changed anything, right? So obviously, if you have a plan that's not being updated and you're eating the same calories that lost you the initial weight, obviously, yes, you're going to get stuck because over time, you need to be adjusting not only your nutrition, but also your cardio based upon the progress you're making. And I'm going to show you exactly how you should be adjusting your cardio and your nutrition here in a second. But overall, changes to the plan and being smart about the plan, updating nutrition, updating your cardio, XYZ, and understanding refeeds is a big reason where I see a lot of people get stuck, is because they don't have the proper knowledge on how to update it or change macros, maybe lower calories, maybe raise cardio. And I want to show you exactly what it really should look like from a perspective as well. So let's say that you're at 2,600 calories, and we'll just put this kind of as a relative guess. You're at 2,600 calories and you're doing 20 minutes of cardio. So we can relatively guess that your BMR must be a little bit pretty high because you're at 2,600 calories, right? And this could vary. I'm just picking a random number. But let's just say like your BMR is solid right here. It's doing pretty well. You're getting good gym pumps. You have great energy. Your cognitive focus is great. And you're progressing in the gym and getting stronger while you're dieting. So instead of dropping, 600-700 calories, drop just 200 and see what that does. And then the next week, if you don't really see much of a difference, raise like 10 minutes of cardio. Where I see people go wrong is they will start at 0 cardio. They will drop this to 2,000 and they'll drop this to 1,500. You know how much stress that is on the body at once? Yes, the body's going to be like, what the hell is going on? And that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't know how to adjust very short, small nuances each week to keep them progressing. And, we see that a lot as well with people who come to us who have done that in the past. And you can usually tell the guys who have crashed their calories pretty low is because typically they end up gaining the weight back. And you need to understand too, the whole process of weekly adjustments or minor adjustments each week is that, one, not every single week you will weigh in lower, right? Sometimes it takes 2-3 weeks to kind of slowly weigh and get lower, because you have to put into context as well. With cardio, there's an inflammatory response. You can actually look a little bit leaner in photos, but the scale might not actually tell. So big thing is you need to be tracking actual photos, because body composition is more important, right? How you look physically is more important, because it's not about weight loss, it's about fat loss, right? We want to keep that muscle tissue so we can have a high metabolism, and we can also have good hormones as well. And so you need to be making minor adjustments. Well, when do we do a refeed? And that's a great question, because there's a lot of questions that I get a lot of time revolve around refeeds, like how to do a refeed. And the best way to do a refeed is, one, if you're like kind of upwards in calories, your energy is good, your gym pumps are good, you don't have fatigue, and all these things that we talked about in section 1 are taken care of with the little nuances. You don't need to really change much. The only time that you would need to do a refeed, and I say refeed is because there's a difference between a cheat meal and a refeed. A refeed is more calculated and it's more down to the gram, as a cheat meal is just like, hey, I'm just going to go eat whatever I like. So a refeed's calculated. And how you do a refeed is you would lower the protein, maybe 100 calories, and then you would actually raise the carbohydrates 50, 75, maybe even 100 grams of carbohydrates to give yourself a refeed for one day, right? And that should, what it does, it will raise this BMR a little bit for the first day, right? Because your body's getting more carbohydrates. And then for the next few days, once you get back onto the plan, then your body will, want to burn more calories for a longer period of time, right? It's a strategy to use to really adhere to the metabolism. But with that being said, where I see a lot of people go wrong is they do cheat meals where they just eat like a couple thousand calories, don't track, but refeeds are very, very calculated. And you don't need a refeed until you feel like excessive fatigue, right? Where you feel like you're walking through sand, or, you feel like the gym pumps are just terrible and your energy is just absolutely terrible as well. Your mental focus is off. Your sleep is terrible. Like, those are all signs of actual fatigue, but you have to cover section 1 before you mark it off as, oh, I need a refeed, right? Because most people don't really need a refeed in a typical sense because hunger's not bad. Like, hunger is good. It's a response of the body to tell us that we're hungry, that we're starving, right? That's a good sign. That means we're in a depleted state. That means we're eating less food. Like, hunger's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing when you're on a diet. But a lot of people don't want to push through that hunger, and they kind of, use the excuses of refeed. So I would say typically 8 out of 10 times you probably don't need a refeed if you are above 2,000 calories, right? So that's kind of how we kind of adjust macros, how you give yourself a refeed. Now let's talk about probably the biggest one, which is metabolic adaptation, which this one is significant. And this is probably the biggest one that I come across, right? What metabolic adaptation is your way, basically when your calories get too low and your body has adapted. What is that? So basically when you start to eat lower calories, your body's going to adjust to burn less calories. It is a survival mechanism that is made up of the body from millions of years of evolution, that the body starts to actually burn less calories when you start to eat less calories. So things like your thermic effect of food start to get lower because you're not eating as much food. Non-energy activity thermogenesis starts to get lower because maybe you don't have the energy to do as much fidgeting or walking around as you usually would if you had high energy. And so the body starts to, tell it to move less when you have less calories, but also it tells it to burn less when you are eating less calories. So over time, your body does adapt. And the biggest thing that I see with a lot of different people is that they do not account for that, and they get stuck under 2,000 calories. I've even seen as low as 18, 17, 16,000 calories, and they're just kind of plateaued out, and they, obviously feel like crap. They look like crap. They just lose a bunch of muscle tissue, and that's not what we want to be doing. We do not want to be losing muscle tissue. So you have to understand metabolic adaptation is a thing, and your body will start to burn less calories over time. So how do we really fix metabolic adaptation within the body? So there's a couple ways that you can kind of test it. So first of all, you could just do a 2-day refeed, which means that maybe you give yourself 100 more grams of carbohydrates for 2 days and see how your body responds. If it responds well and you start to drop weight, well, there it is. That's a good sign that your calories were too low, and I would stay at that 100 calories up for an extended period of time until your body weight stopped moving. Because in a lot of cases, metabolic adaptation will put your body in a sense of intense fatigue. And fatigue and cortisol in the body will prohibit you from actually losing body fat. So first, you can give yourself a 2-day refeed of 100 calories and see how your body responds. If that works, or if it doesn't work, another thing that you could try is a 1-week diet break, which a diet break would be you cut all cardio, maybe do like a 20-minute walk in the morning, and then you add 100 grams of carbohydrates for an entire week. And what that'll do is that it will repair a lot of stuff. It will reduce a lot of inflammation, and it will reduce a ton of fatigue on the body. So how do we do a 1-week diet break? So just add 100 calories for about a week, drop all the cardio, and see how your body progresses. If it works, then there's your answer. You're in just a depleted state and your body had adapted. But this will help the body start to actually repair a lot of hormones and help you make a little bit more progress. So then the last thing you can do, and this is probably where most people need to do who have been eating fairly low amount of calories for a fairly long amount of time, is actually completely reverse these calories higher. And this is called metabolic priming, which is what I specialize in and what I use with hundreds of my clients. And what metabolic priming does is, one, you cut the cardio, you add just steps, right? Just walking to keep the body moving. And then you start slowly adding carbohydrates each week, right? What that'll do is that will turn the body into more a carbohydrate metabolism state, right? Lower the fat a little bit, get some carbohydrates in there, get a good protein goal, and slowly start raising those carbohydrates up each week, adjusting each week. And that will help with, one, your body start to repair a lot of hormones, raise your BMR, and in no time, you'll be eating more calories, and I guarantee you'll be down in weight significantly if you do it right. It's the same process I use with all of my clients, and there's tons of videos, testimonials, and transformations on my YouTube channel that you're more than welcome to go check out, where I actually break down the process step by step in a lot of case studies and hear clients on actual testimonials who said, yeah, I'm eating X amount of calories up and I'm down X amount of weight. So metabolic priming is a highly researched topic that I use with all of my clients. So in many cases, I would say that this is the case, that we need to reverse the calories back and go into more of a metabolic priming phase to get a little bit more calories into the system. And when we do, repair a lot of that, we do maybe gain some muscle back, then you can go back in to that deficit, back into adding cardio, back into lowering food. And you can repeat that over and over because it's a repeatable process that I use with all of my clients. And I've personally done 7-8 times and I look better each time. So if you want to learn a little bit more about metabolic priming, go to that video, check it out on my page. But that is the end of today's video. I wanted to explain the biggest reason where I see people stuck. So I hope you found a ton of value in it. This whole channel is designed to help you make progress on your own fitness journey. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to turn on your alarms as well, because Wednesday I will be doing an entire video on the exact fat loss strategy that I've used with 150 plus of my clients. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn that bell notification on so you get the notification for the new YouTube video, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.